This podcast is supported by Americans for Medical Progress through the Michael D. Hare Fellowship, awarded annually to support projects that inform and educate the public about the critical role of animal research in furthering medical progress. The fellowship honors the late Dr. Michael Hare, a renowned board-certified laboratory animal veterinarian who dedicated his career to scientific and medical advancements, and he was deeply committed to animal welfare and advocacy. All right, in this 12th episode of Lab Rat Chat, Danielle and I had a chance to talk with Dr. Logan France. She's a board-certified lab animal vet, and she's also the creator and program director for an amazing day in our field known as Biomedical Research Awareness Day, or simply BRAD. She'll tell you all about why this program was started, how and where it's celebrated, and why everyone from teachers to dentists should consider being a part of this very important day that helps educate the public about the use of animals in biomedical research. So go check out our show notes to get the links to Brad's webpage and social media accounts. Be sure to follow them, and please consider participating in this year's BRAD, which will be held on September 17th. Until then, sit back, relax, and enjoy this 12th episode of Lab Rat Chat. Hey everyone, and thanks for listening to this episode of Lab Rat Chat, where Danielle and I will be talking with Dr. Logan France, a board-certified laboratory animal veterinarian and program director and founder of BRAD, or Biomedical Research Awareness Day. And before Logan tells us about her background, I just want to first remind everyone to get out there, follow us on social media, rate and review our show, and know that you can also reach out to Danielle and I at any time by emailing us at labratchat@gmail.com. And so let's just jump right into today's episode with Logan. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come and speak with Danielle and I, and to tell our audience about Biomedical Research Awareness Day, or BRAD. And if you would, just go ahead and start off by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. So yeah, my background, I think a lot of vets know from the time that they were kids that they want to be a vet. And that really wasn't the case for me. I started college at the University of Texas with the idea that I would go into medicine and go to medical school. And in the summer before my sophomore year of college, I was watching my sister go through medical school, and the idea just didn't really excite me. And I knew I loved medicine and I loved science, but working as a human physician didn't seem like the right career move for me. And UT does something called Camp Texas, which is a really fun kind of orientation for freshmen before starting the year. And I was a counselor for it. And the place that hosted the camp had a parrot in a cage. And I found that during the weeks I was there, I would constantly be going to visit this parrot and talk to this bird. And this sounds totally bizarre, but one day I was like, I think maybe I'll try being a vet. And that is literally how the idea of going to vet school started, which in retrospect, again, really weird, but it worked. So once I decided I wanted to go down that path, I realized that I needed to get to work quickly since I would be applying for vet school a year later. And many of the required courses were the same between pre-med and pre-vet, so that was good. But I needed some shadowing and hands-on experience for the application. Lucky for me, my dad is a scientist who studies addiction in non-human primates. So my very first experience actually in veterinary medicine was in lab animal medicine. And I immediately fell in love with it. It was a pretty perfect combination of the medicine and the science and interesting species and variety and really all of it. So I spent some time shadowing small and large animal veterinarians and found that didn't really do it for me. But I loved the research environment and the animals, and I especially loved working with non-human primates. So when I started vet school, contrary to many, I actually knew I wanted to be a laboratory animal veterinarian. And I continued getting experience throughout vet school and shadowing at different institutions. And then after I finished vet school, I completed a residency at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, which is an amazing place. And after my residency, I accepted a job at Vanderbilt University Medical Center in Nashville, where I am currently an assistant professor and a clinical veterinarian. So it's been a fun ride and has brought me kind of around the country and full circle.
I love that story. I kind of had a smirk on my face while you were telling it because you didn't grow up knowing you wanted to be a vet. And I think that also mirrors Jeff, because I'll never forget, he already had a career and a job going for him. And we were chatting one day. He goes, I think I'm going to go to vet school. I said, oh, okay. And then it took off from there. So I think once you kind of reach that point and you just know that this is what you have to do. So
exactly.
Yeah, it hit me kind of like a freight truck did. I mean, like all of a sudden, like one day I remember I was working out and all of a sudden it was just like vet school, like veterinarian, lab animal vet. That's what I want to do.
So funny.
I mean, obviously it's always in the back of my mind. And I tell people too, I didn't grow up wanting to be a vet, but I went back home a few years ago before I had started vet school, and I looked at a first grade journal. And in that journal, we were answering questions. So what do you want to be when you grow up? And I had written veterinarian. I mean, misspelled horribly. I was in first grade. But I think that's what I was trying to say. I mean, there was like a V in there and a T, Aryan.
I
so I think
it.
I spelled right.
But how often do you talk to people and they say, oh, I used to want to be a vet? I feel like that happens all the time. Like everyone at some point.
Yeah. I grew up thinking I want to be a vet. And then I was like, I think I just want to work more with the animals. Like, I started out animal care technician, worked my way up, and I'm heavily involved in lab animal research. And I just love it. And I think it's more this field that I love than the idea of having gone through with vet school. So I'm perfectly happy where I am, but I love hearing the other stories about how everyone just kind of realizes like, I got to go to vet school.
Yeah. And there are so many different facets to lab animal medicine and ways that you can be involved in it and not be a vet and do different work within it and still contribute. So it's really cool.
Yeah. For our listeners who don't know, I guess, can we start out kind of telling them about what Brad is, how long it's been around, how it's grown over the years?
Yeah, the story of Brad. So shortly after graduating from A&M, I was selected to receive the Michael D. Hare Fellowship from Americans for Medical Progress, which you are very familiar with. This is how the podcast originated. So with this fellowship, I created Biomedical Research Awareness Day, or BRAD. And it's an annual celebration in April, typically, to honor and raise awareness about the role of animals in biomedical research and the quest for new treatments and cures for people and animals. We always talk about people, but, research is done to help us treat our pets as well. And that's an important part of the message. I created BRAD, and for the first year, I focused on vet students across the country and basically reached out to all of the different vet schools. There were 30 at the time. There are more now, and asked them to participate by hosting a Biomedical Research Awareness Day at their own institution to educate their classmates and their community on the importance of animal research. And it could be whatever they wanted and incorporate, different things, and I would help them walk through the process. So each school had a BRAD ambassador who was my point of contact, or each of the schools that participated. And I basically walked them through the planning process and tried to make it super simple for them. I provided resources and giveaways and different ideas for educational activities to include in their events. We had a planning timeline to make sure they stayed on track, pretty much all of the info they needed to help host their event. And they could pick and choose what they wanted to do, which the flexibility of BRAD is just really neat and probably one of the best parts of BRAD. And they could tailor their event for their institution and their particular audience. So some vet schools would host a lunch and learn about animal research, while others maybe set up a table during a lunch and had giveaways and informational handouts on animal research. So all of the events looked a little bit different, but they had that same message that animal research is necessary. So the first BRAD was hosted in 2016, and we had 20 of the then 30 AVMA accredited vet schools in the United States participate. And given the success during its first year, we kept expanding and growing, and Americans for Medical Progress has been amazing and supporting the program. We actually had multiple Hare Fellows come through afterwards that were dedicated specifically to expanding BRAD and making it a sustainable annual event. It kept growing, and in 2018, I took on the role of program director for BRAD. And now we've gone from having just vet schools to all different people from all different walks of life. We've got medical schools, graduate programs, undergrad, K through 12, vet clinics, pharmaceutical companies, CROs, you name it. And they are participating in BRAD, which is really fun to see. And in terms of numbers, so 2016, we had 20 vet schools. In 2019, we had over 200 BRAD events spanning 9 countries, which was really exciting and fun to see. With COVID this year, as we know, most of the world was kind of put on hold for a bit. And so BRAD was postponed, but it will be celebrated soon on Thursday, September 17th, which we are really excited about. And then hopefully by April of 2021, we will be able to celebrate on our normal third Thursday in April. So that's how it started and how it grew. And it's been so fun to see it grow and to be a part of it and to watch others embrace it.
Yeah, it is really awesome and pretty incredible. That was quite the undertaking you did, especially to get this program started and get it out there and reach out to vet schools and then reach out to and work with other Hare Fellows to help them expand it. So, the effort that's got into BRAD is incredible.
Well, it is a team effort.
Yeah, from AMP to everybody else involved.
It's a lot of people, for sure. And we wouldn't be able to do it without the participants and without people wanting to host events and being willing to take it on at their own institution. It would be nothing. So it is definitely the community, the lab animal community that has come together in the research community to the program.
Yeah, they are the best. I mean, I think, and I feel like we probably kind of know the answer to this one, but why did you feel it was so important to start this annual tradition? And why do you think it's necessary institutions and vet schools all over the world celebrate Biomedical Research Awareness Day? And I'll say that, I mean, I know, and you probably had the same ideas in your head when you started it, but for me, I'm in a class of 120 people. So, I mean, there's roughly 500 or so vet students at my school. And I would just say there's only a handful, less than 15 or 20 who are interested in the field. And then maybe 50 or so of those that really know about the field in general, what it even is, that there's a live animal field for veterinarians where you could practice medicine.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty good numbers compared to with my experience at A&M. Yeah. So growing up, it was normal for me. Animal research was normal. My dad was a scientist. I didn't ever really think twice about it, I guess. And then I started realizing as I got older that others didn't necessarily agree with that. So when I started vet school and I did meet others in my class who were either fundamentally opposed to animal research or really had no idea what it entailed and how it impacted their ability to practice veterinary medicine, I felt like it was really, as someone who grew up around it and wanting to go into the field, I felt like it was really my obligation to talk about it and to try to educate my peers and veterinary students. And that's why we selected vet students for the first year. It really was intentional. And Jeff, I'm sure you'll see, if you haven't already, that people in the community really turn to vets for their opinions on all sorts of issues, not just veterinary medicine. But then when it comes to animal care and the humane treatment of animals and the do's and don'ts, they do trust vets. I really felt like we needed to create advocates in all of our veterinarians and all of the veterinary students so that when they were approached by those in the community, their clients, family, friends, they could speak to animal research and they would be advocating for it and they'd understand how it allows them to practice good medicine and to treat things in our pets the way we treat things in humans. So that's why I started in the first place and why we went to vet students. And again, growing from there, I think we've seen that the participation and the enthusiasm people have for BRAD speaks to the need for there to be that platform for those in research to celebrate the work they do and to show how proud they are, how proud we are of the work we do with animals.
So you mentioned, even schools K through 12 can get involved. If someone wanted to participate in BRAD, maybe someone's listening and they're thinking, wow, this could be a really good thing to bring to our institution. How can they get involved? Who can get involved? If there's a school teacher out there who, has to teach virtual in the fall and wants something new to kind of talk to their students about, how do they go about getting information?
Yes. BRAD is super flexible, which is really neat. And in my opinion, the best part of BRAD. Anyone can participate, whether, as you mentioned, virtual classroom, or if you're doing it individually or as part of an institution. The options are endless for that. So to sign up, you can visit the BRAD website, which is bradglobal.org, and you click sign up at the top. We have a special registration this year. Since we know a lot of people aren't going to be able to do in-person events, we have a free virtual presentation. Normally, registration costs $25 to help cover the cost of the giveaways and the educational materials that we send. But again, virtual registration is free. And we've come up with a lot of fun ways for people to participate in BRAD virtually. One of them is the official BRAD webinar that is sponsored by Technoplast. And this year we have Dr. Thomas Prevost speaking about stress and aging and their relationship between them, which is obviously very applicable given all of the stress that each of us is facing these days in the world. And he's a scientist at the University of Toronto, and he works with primarily mice, but he's using a very unique cage from Technoplast that's called a digitally ventilated cage, or DVC. Jeff, you've probably seen these at conferences when you go, ALAS in the booth. But they're pretty neat, and they allow monitoring of the animals in their home cage so you can look at their behavior without disturbing them. And he's going to talk about how he's used that technology in his research and what he's found. And that talk will be live streamed on September 17th at 12 p.m. Central Time. We will be recording it for those who can't tune in, and registration for it is on the website as well. We also created BRAD challenges for this year. So this is, as everyone is learning, COVID is forcing us to become creative in our ways of doing things. And one of them is this. We've got 18 challenges for people to complete that are focused on showing support for animal research and educating others about the importance of animal research. And by participating, they can earn entries for a raffle where we're giving away a bunch of neat prizes. And the challenges are all different. So they include things like watching the BRAD webinar or talking to a friend or a family member about animal research and sharing that experience with us on social media, or listening to one of the Lab Rat podcasts. That's one of our challenges too.
Oh, nice.
I just went to your website and pulled up the challenges. I was about to say that. That's awesome. I'll be participating with the Brad
Yeah,
challenges.
will you do that one?
For
Good.
sure.
We'll get you an
that one
interview
checked already.
for that. Perfect. But yeah, and that's part of it too, is we really want to utilize social media, which is such an important part of our world these days, to spread the message. And there are lots of ways to do that. So, and you'll see many of the challenges are focused around social media. And so people can begin completing challenges on September 1st and see how many they get done by the 18th. And then we'll be raffling off fun prizes. So there's that. And then, of course, in terms of participation, I mentioned that the box of giveaways, but if you are not receiving giveaways this year because you can't do in-person events, then you can still download our resources. We have a ton of different things on the website. We've worked with both Transnetics and Technoplast to create educational posters. We've designed materials for specific groups and audiences. So, for example, one of the handouts talks about why animal research is important for keeping our pets healthy, and it's meant to be shared at vet clinics. We send it to vet clinics. They can have it out on the table, and the clients, as they're sitting there waiting for their pet to be seen, can check it out. There are resources for kids. We have coloring sheets, which we found actually that adults like those probably just as much as the kids do too. But they've got facts about animal research on those, and all of them are downloadable from the website. And we're constantly creating new materials too. So if there's something that someone wants or would like to see, what we are interested in working with them to create it. For example, you're going to speak to a class of dental students. We can work with you to create an educational tool to help explain what we've learned about dentistry through animal research and how it allows them to practice dentistry. So we're always open to things like that. And then, of course, in terms of Brad events, people come up with their own activities. Again, always impressed with their creativity, what they come up with, new ideas, how things to incorporate into their event. So when in-person events are allowed, a lot of institutions will host interactive booths or tables, and participants can sign the banner pledging their support for animals in research, or play the enrichment matching game, which is an activity. I think we had that at the booth too, Jeff, where you match the item that the animal uses to the animal. And we have freebies and posters and all sorts of things. You can hold a seminar. We had one institution actually host a tour of their cat colony, which is really cool. So every event looks a little bit different. Again, they all have that underlying message and make sure to educate about why animal research is important.
All the Brad merchandise and everything that's out there, and all the gift stuff that comes in the giveaway boxes and the stickers, it's all really awesome stuff. I mean, I have plenty of those stickers lying around, and definitely stole some of the coloring pages as well for myself.
Oh, yeah.
You can blame it on your kids. Yeah.
My kids stole it, actually.
Stress relief. It's good.
I mean, something to do during class, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And I want to say, too, the Brad webinar have always been awesome. I'll never forget the one webinar, and I probably should have looked it up before I started talking about this. But it was, I don't remember the individual's name who gave the lecture, but it was about limb transplants and face transplants and skin.
Yes, Dr. Brandiker.
And that was the most incredible presentation I think I've ever seen. Just what they've been able to learn from mice and rats and be able to apply directly to humans, and have actually done, like arm transplants to soldiers who have had limbs blown off in war, and then they're actually able to gain function in their arms, and they can do push-ups and open up their car doors and drive and everything. But it just blew my mind.
It really is amazing. Yeah.
So anyways, it's a lot about Brad. Let's have a little bit of fun real quick. You tell us your favorite laboratory animal and why, and I will start, and I hope I don't steal yours, but mine has to be the dog. So I don't know about you. Of course, I mean, I'm also biased. The name of the show is Lab Rat Chat. So
you got to love the rat. Yeah.
I was prepared if someone was going to take rat to also talk about rats. But yeah, I mean, just dogs, what they've been able to contribute, especially discovery of insulin in the 1920s. And then if we were going to talk about rats, medication for basically anything you could think of out there, high cholesterol, asthma, ADHD, everything under the sun. Those are probably my top two. Dogs I've actually never worked with the dogs in the research setting. I mean, we have beagles at our school that we use that come from research institutions. And first year of vet school, we're assigned one of these beagles, and we have to train them and basically get them ready for adoption. And then we adopt them out to the community.
Oh, that's awesome.
Rats I've worked with quite a bit. Grew up thinking rats were these mean animals, grew up watching like Ninja Turtles and stuff and Splinter, and you see that.
I was going to say Splinter. Yeah.
I mean, not that Splinter's mean, but you see the other rats in the sewer and everything. And especially they have the red eyes and all that. And so, but then you play with them in the lab and they're way friendlier than all the other animals in there, way friendlier than mice.
Oh, totally. And it seems like people have a problem. If they have a problem with working with rats, it's the tail for whatever reason. They don't like the tail. which I don't mind it at all. And rats they're fun. They're cute.
I had a pet rat actually in college. I took a lab animal class and we each had a pet rat that we worked with in the lab class. And at the end, we could adopt him. So I had my rat. I named him Nacho and he lived for like 3 more years, I think.
Oh, that's awesome. I would love to have a pet rat, but I think my cat would probably also love to have a pet rat, which would be a problem.
Yeah, your cat would have to eliminate the pet rat.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh, my favorite. So I love non-human primates in general. I love pretty much all monkeys, but within that category, I would say baboons. They're just such cool animals. I love their personalities and their temperament. And that question is probably more about just the animal than what they've contributed to, although they've contributed to all sorts of scientific discoveries. And the ones that I have worked with previously some of them have been on studies looking at addiction and others imaging modalities. And they are just adorable and sweet and they're quirky. And I really like working with baby non-human primates. I haven't worked with baby baboons, but at Johns Hopkins during my residency, we got to provide the clinical coverage for our non-human primate breeding facility, which had around 500 animals, and they were all macaques, 2 different species of macaques. And baby monkeys are just so cute. And it was really cool to take care of them and then to be able to see them. Some of them would stay at Johns Hopkins and go into studies at our institution, and others would be sent elsewhere. But it was cool to care for them and watch them then go and contribute to research. And then pigs are a lot of fun. So I know that was multiple, but I liked them all.
And I'm going to take mine in like a totally weird direction, but I actually was lucky enough to be able to work with a naked mole rat colony at my first job. And naked mole rats are a real animal. Yeah, I know they're in the cartoon Kim Possible, I think. They are real. And just getting to work with them, it was just totally unique to watch their family structure because the colonies have a very specific family structure. They live for like up to 30 years and they actually don't drink water. They get all of their water intake from their food. So part of our job was making sure they always had fresh vegetables, and sweet potatoes were like their absolute favorite. And we just had to make sure they always had a moist vegetable so that they could have water.
Oh, what a fun job. I've never worked with them, but they're pretty neat in terms of their housing, right? Don't they have a particular area where they use the bathroom and then another where cool?
Yeah, each of their enclosures had 3 or 4 compartments, and we had like tunnels that connected them, and they had a specific bathroom compartment, which actually made, changing routine really easy because every day you would change that box, but then you could change the other ones less frequent. And they preferred that because they like to set up their nest and set up their sleeping area. And they're like so ugly that they're adorable.
Yes.
I mean, they can also be pretty vicious too, right? I remember learning, I think we learned in school a little bit about them. And then the challenging females that want to take over for the queen will attack and try to kill the queen while she's giving birth.
Well, are you thinking of naked mole rats or hairy mole rats? Because the hairy mole rats are quite vicious because I worked with them too, but they're not my favorite because they were kind of mean. But the naked mole rats were kind of like quiet. I don't know. You could just reach in and pick them up gently by their sides, like you're picking up your pet cat or something like. And they weren't really flexible, so you didn't really have to worry about them turning around to get you. I don't know. They were fun.
Jeff, I'm thinking maybe your kids need a couple of pet naked mole rats. What do you think?
I don't know about that. Maybe we have fish. We have fish right now.
If you're in vet school, you have to have more than just fish. That is like rule of vet school.
Yeah. Well, we're looking for another dog, so we'll see. I can't live without a dog, so I'm sure we'll be getting another dog soon. We have fish for now. We got 1 snail, and then now that snail has had 10 or 11 baby snails. I think we're like an official snail breeder out here. So if anybody out there needs any snails, reach out. I know where to find some snail babies, and I can send them to you.
That's hilarious.
Quite the resource.
Since we've gotten completely off topic here, what are like 1 or 2 of your favorite medical discoveries that have come out of the use of animals in biomedical research?
Yeah, well, actually, Jeff touched on one of them already, which is the transplant medicine. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. During my residency at Hopkins, we worked with a lab, Dr. Brandiker's lab, and he was studying limb transplant in pigs. And as many people know, one of the biggest struggles with transplant medicine is the immunosuppression that often has to go along with it in order to prevent the body from rejecting that transplanted organ. So this lab was trying to figure out basically how to decrease the immunosuppression required while successfully transplanting a limb. And anyone that tuned into that webinar is familiar with the story, but the PI, the principal investigator for this lab, was on the team of surgeons that completed the first bilateral forearm transplant at Johns Hopkins in a young man who survived a quadruple amputation after an injury in Iraq. And he lost all 4 limbs and was then able to have this transplant done, that he now has 2 working arms. As Jeff mentioned, he's able to do push-ups and pull-ups, and there are videos that you can find online of him practicing his fine motor movements. And it's incredible to see that. And then to be able to work with those animals that are helping us optimize that research and the procedure and the immunosuppression required is really cool. There was a study involving cats where they were looking to see whether stem cells could heal a damaged layer of the eye, the endothelial layer. And so what they would do is they'd inject these stem cells, monitor the eye for a specific amount of time, and then they would have to enucleate the eye, take that eye out so that they could look at the tissue. But then they were able to adopt these cats out after the study was done. So I haven't seen that yet in humans, but it was really cool because it was one that showed how we're able to get research from these animals, have them contribute to science, and then send them to their forever home and let them kind of live out the rest of their life. And that's been a big push in research in general, when it's possible to adopt animals out. Of course, it's not always possible. And if we're studying the heart, you'll likely need to look at the heart at the end of the study, and that requires an animal to be euthanized. But when that's not the case, it's really neat when we're able to adopt them out.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been asking all of our guests this question. So now it's your turn to tell us a little bit about how you describe when someone asks you what you do for a living. Do you tell them that you work with animals in research settings? What are their reactions? If you've had negative interactions, how do you because I've said it to people, they give me a weird look. They look at me like I'm some sort of monster. But then by the end of the conversation, if they're willing to listen, they kind of have a neutral perspective, or I think they've reconsidered maybe some of their ideas. Our goal is never to force opinions or force our opinions on somebody or what we do, but we try to at least make sure that they're well informed. And that's, again, the goal of this podcast, is to make sure people are at least informed on the topic and not just hearing the other side of the argument about the use of animals in research. So what do you tell people? I feel like you're a pretty happy, bubbly person, so they probably don't look at you as, some mean, cruel vet in the lab. Like maybe they look for me with my somewhat robotic voice at times. I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, I bet you get a lot of different answers for this question. I think people approach it in many different ways. Personally, I don't shy away from discussing it. I like to talk to people. I'm totally that person sitting next to you on the airplane that starts a conversation. So typically, someone will say, "What do you do?" And I'll say that I'm a veterinarian. I take care of research animals. And then it can go in different directions from there. So I have had a few negative interactions. I had someone tell me, "Well, there are other things to talk about. I don't want to talk about that." I was like, okay, well, we're moving on,
At least they were honest.
Yeah, exactly. But most people are curious and they have questions and they want to know what being a vet for lab animals means. And so I explained that I provide routine veterinary care for animals the way you would for your pets, but then we also care for the animals that are involved in experiments or in science and in research. And if things come up because of that, we take care of them and provide that vet care. And we work with scientists to help them figure out what animal model is the best for what they're trying to study based on the information they're hoping to gain from the study. We help with protocol development. So basically making sure that all the work that is done with the animals is humane and necessary and not duplicative. And I think that's a part that is important. People don't really understand that there are regulations in place. I know you had a really great podcast about this, talking about the regulations, but a lot of people, when you tell them the number of steps that scientists have to go through in order to use animals, they are shocked. There's a misconception, I think, that someone can decide they want to try something and then just pick an animal and go do it. And that obviously is not the case. So I make sure to talk about that, and then to include that I'm really ultimately the advocate for the animal. As veterinarians, we make sure they're treated humanely and that they get the care that they deserve. And I think part of it is, people who know me know that I have pets and I'm obsessed with my pets. And so seeing that, I think, helps them know and trust that what I do and my work with laboratory animals has to be good, because it's given how I feel about animals, knowing me as a human, I couldn't be a part of something like animal research if it were not a good thing. And I think also relating it to them. So if you have someone, you're talking to someone and you say, do you know someone who has heart disease or diabetes? And well, the reason that we're able to treat diabetes is because of X, Y, and Z, because of these species that were involved in, mice and dogs that helped us discover insulin. And now we can treat diabetes because of that. So really making it personal for them, and for people listening who struggle with talking about the work that they do, having a few of those examples in your back pocket that you can pull out are really important and can really help with the conversation. Also, I'm pretty much always ready to chat, but I know that's not the case for a lot of people. And I do encourage people that don't always feel like you have to talk about the work you do, but when you do talk about it, make sure you're ready to take it on and to frame it in a way that is honest and transparent and really shows how much you care about the animals, because people do listen to the words that you say and your body language. And so you want to make sure that your message is received well. And we also have resources on the BRAD website that help create an elevator speech and kind of outline what you need to do, have other facts about animal research that can be incorporated into conversations as well.
And even if you have someone that you're chatting with who maybe, does have that disagreeing opinion, I would just tell people, don't let it shake you, because what you're all doing is so important to the field. So
yeah, and they're definitely out there, and you're not going to change everyone. I mean, I had a girl in my vet school class who is an animal rights activist in multiple organizations, and I cannot tell you how many conversations we had. And at the end of the day, it's an emotional argument for her, and I'm not going to change that. But I can make sure she hears the facts and that she understands where I'm coming from in a respectful way. And I think that's the important part.
Yeah. I think that really took care of a lot of the questions that we wanted to talk about today. Do you have any final comments or thoughts that we haven't covered that maybe you want to make sure our listeners know about with Brad or, Animals in Research?
Yeah, well, just a quick mention for those listening. If you don't already, please follow us on social media. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And you can find our handles are a little bit different for each of them because we didn't get to them in time. Some were already taken. So go to bradglobal.org. You can find all of our social media accounts from there. And it's a great way to raise awareness and spread the word about your event and to support other BRAD participants as they share about their BRAD events. And I also would like to take a minute to say thank you to our sponsors and our partners who have been supporting BRAD all along. We feel incredibly lucky to have their financial support, their encouragement, and they're all over the world, really. And we're able to use this platform to educate the public about the importance of animals in research because of them. So thank you. And thank you both for having me on today. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thanks, Logan. We appreciate it. And the links to everything will be included in the show notes, the links to the BRAD website where you can find the materials, you can find their social media accounts, you can find the sponsorships that Logan was talking about on there as well. So that'll all be in the show notes. And so again, thank you, Logan, for coming on and providing this wealth of information for us and helping to educate, Danielle and I and all of our listeners. We appreciate your time. I know you're extremely busy, especially with BRAD coming up here in, just a few weeks. So we appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been fun.
All right. Well, until next time.
Bye.
See you, everybody.